Hey, welcome. This is Jelle, growing bonsai, and we are in my garden on what might be the last nice day of the year. You can see a variety of tools here around me. I'm going to do a bit of growing bed maintenance. And in case you were wondering, these are asparagus stems. I just removed all the old stalks of this growing season. They're still here on the walkway. I need to clean it up. But that is also the reason why I can now do this video, because now I can actually see from this side all the trunks that are growing. Normally, this is just one big hedgerow of green stalks. And this part is actually the reason why I brought the camera out. You can see it is very dark here. Although the sun is out, no sun is passing through. And that's because there's a few very big elms, which I'm going to cut down in a minute. Next to that, there's a Zelkova serrata. And I'm going to dig it out and I'm going to carve the trunk. Now let me show you why this Zelkova is so interesting. As I'm digging down, you see here, this is a side branch. And last year I tried to grow a sacrifice branch to fatten up the base. This is the sacrifice branch on such a tiny little tree. And that was really successful. I cut it off in spring. And now it's actually time to work on this lump a little bit. Cutting it off is the only way that this trunk will ever be a little bit nicer and neater. I could of course take a carving tool out, but I'm a little bit lazy today, which means that I'm now taking a very long time to cut it off because my saw doesn't have the time, doesn't have the space to cut. I'm just going to switch off the camera and I'll be right back with you once it is done. I think you can now tell how big this trunk has gotten. It starts here. Let me just put my hand behind it. See, this is all this trunk. Very nice short movement, and this is probably going to be the top. I do want to do a little work on the roots. I'm going to cut them off, but I'm going to take a fairly big distance with my spade because this wound can easily die back if it hasn't died back already. Right, let's go. Full of roots to ground here. I know that you can't tell, but this and these are roots of a boxwood. I just made a video of a very big boxwood that I potted up, and I've planted these upside down to see whether they will sprout from the root ends. Hidden in the back, over there and there are two pines that I'm working on. This one I've been working on for over 3 years and it's still not come out, but there's going to be a 3-year video, and that one I got in spring, and it's going to be a 2-year video. So those are coming up. And look at this lovely undergrowth here with edible flowers. Now here in my garden I have a few larches. This one is about 10 years old, and every single year I just do a light prune of all the long runners, and slowly it ages, creates nice bark. But yeah, there's really not a lot to do on these except for making sure that they don't get overly big, because I want a very old but thin larch, as you would expect from the high mountains where they grow really slowly. And here I can't stop them from growing fast, so twice a year this is what I do to my larches. It has however been 3 years since I last looked at the roots, so in order to not get too heavy roots, cutting around the root ball in this fashion really helps to ensure they don't get overly heavy either, aiding of course in transplanting back into a pot later on. I do this now in fall, so the tree has all winter to get used to it, and this is the perfect time. The tree is starting to turn yellow. Now here I have a trident maple, which I have already pruned back in fall for next year. This linden featured in a video where I showed how to remove a sacrifice branch, and this has all grown over the last year. I've cut away some of these side branches because I want to let this grow further and thicken up all the way to the size of this linden. Can you tell how the wound has started to heal over? About 80% is closed. Another year and it might be completely closed. And this linden also, I've removed some of these upper branches because they were providing shade and I don't want more shade. But later, next year, I'm going to cut back probably to this little branch or maybe even to this little bud. But I'll do that in the early growing season when we've had the first push of growth, because that to me feels more natural. You get shorter internodes on this section. But developing well, loads and loads of buds. So next year, after I let this grow out, I have lots and lots of side branches here, and then I can start building the bonsai from it. Now I dyed Now I doubt anybody recognizes this trunk that is growing here, and that is because it was only a tiny little branch, something like this, when I planted it up 2 years ago. And I used it to show how you plant things up for ground growing. It has grown 2 years, it's now so thick, I'm going to cut it down all the way up to here. Maybe in this video, but maybe in the next one, because I want to take cuttings of this trunk. Yes, cuttings of a 2-3 inch elm trunk, because that's what it is. It's a cork-bark elm. And a little unhappy oak, which I cut short and then died off, and just one side branch started to regrow. Here is a mountain maple, I think a Norwegian maple. The one with the very, very big leaves. And I've been cutting this back just like this for the last 10 years or so. Just because people say you can't create a bonsai out of it, you can't get the ramification. Well, it seems to be working so far. Now if we look at this elm, you can see here this trunk doesn't have any taper at the lower part. It is planted at a slant, but it hasn't resulted in one trunk coming up. But here you see a very good taper on this section. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cut off all these branches, then I'm going to cut this flush, and I'm going to plant this up separately in the hope that it grows root. But first, does that give you more light or what? And these branches, I just chop them up and they go on the compost. Right, so I'm using the sharp side of my pruners on the top and the support side on the bottom, so I don't damage the bark of the part that I want to layer, or grow as a cutting. Is this right? I think it is. Maybe I should take a saw. And then really short. And before doing anything else, I'm just going to chuck this in a bucket of water for now. Now before I continue, I'm going to prune back this Zelkova, so you can actually see what I'm doing to this elm. Right, so now hopefully you have a bit of a clear view on these elms here. And this elm is actually really nice. It is not very thick, but thick enough and straight. And I really want to give some try on creating a broom. So this is going to be my broom. I'm just going to cut it flush. Then I'm going to take my shovel and cut through the roots. And in springtime I'll lift it and put it in a pot, in the hope that I get new buds all along the edge of my cut. And the rest of the buds I'm just going to rub off on string. And then I'm going to make a broom. There we go, sunlight. And I said, cut the roots to facilitate lifting in spring. Wow. I'm not going to prune it back now. I'm just going to leave it alone. I'm going to wait for a couple of more weeks. I want all the leaves to be turning yellow. And then I'm going to chop this off. But look at this wonderful bark and look at how thick this has gotten in a fairly short time. But what I can do is now shorten already the branches, because I don't want all these open wounds. So these I can shorten, because these are not going to be cutting anyway.
And I guess I can go clean up now. So much waste to be processed.
A quick update. Last year I did a video on how I handle field stock. One tree I worked on was a linden tree, the other tree I worked on was a field maple. This is that linden tree, and this is that field maple. People have voiced their concerns, they'll never live, but they do. Let me just finalize putting the other elm cutting into a pot, and then I'm going to finish off with this video. This was Jelle, growing bonsai, cleaning up a grow bed. Happy fall!